Hi, Docs. I'm Dr. Latifat. I'm the host of the Money Fit MD podcast. This is where we help badass women physicians just like you learn simple and effective tools to build wealth from the inside out. That way, we can create wealth and bigger impact without all the burnout. Enjoy the episode.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode with Dr. Latifat. I'm so excited that we're here together. I hope you had a good holiday or you're having a good holiday. I hope you're taking care of yourself, that you're not just like serving, but you're also like getting some rest as well. Because I know how hard you serve, I know how much you give, but it's so important for you to make sure you take care of yourself because we got a new year coming up. I hope you're doing good. For those that I haven't met, I'm Dr. Latifat. I'm the host of the show, the Money Fit MD Show, which is where all we do here is making sure that women physicians learn money, have money, and create wealth. The podcast episode that I have today that I'm going to be chatting with you guys about is something that some of you guys may have heard about. Um, and it was a recent conversation that was had during an interview with one of the most prominent, super powerful, badass, one of my most admired female actress, which is Taraji Henson. I mean, this woman is like badass overload. And she had an interview recently where there was a conversation that actually she burst into tears about how much disparities that existed in terms of how the math wasn't mathing when it comes to how much she's earning. And to be honest with you, after I saw this clip, I watched it many, many times. I didn't really say much of it. I still didn't say anything, but I realized that I kept on coming back to that clip. And at some point, I think I was like, I don't remember how many times I've seen it. But I had to pause and ask myself why I kept on going back to it over and over again. And the reason why is because it really does hit home. And so the conversation that I want to have today is something that affects all of us when it comes to medicine. It affects all of us in healthcare and even affects people outside of healthcare, as demonstrated in the entertainment industries with disparities that exist when it comes to money. But I want to expand that conversation even more to talk about when math just ain't mathin', right? And just to preface or whatever you want to call it, I have no inside information about what's going on with Taraji. I don't know any details that, you guys don't also know by just like Googling and seeing what the news says. But I want to just talk about how the reflection that I've done on her conversation, what we can learn regardless of the color of your skin, but also how, like, now then what we can do. Right. And so, let's just talk a little bit about what was it that we identify so much with. And by the way, if you listen to this episode, I don't care what color of your skin is. I don't care what your gender is. There's stuff that we can learn because at every point in time, we can be the one being advocated for, or we can be advocating for others. So if you find anything that I share today helpful, I want you to share it with others because the work that needs to be done is not just hers or mine or anybody else. It's the work that we all have to do together. And it doesn't matter if you're like, privileged or not privileged or whatever it is you identify with, like, we all have work to do because at some point or the other we are in spaces of privilege, and at one place or the other we're also at places of underprivilege for the most part, right? There are some people that it seems like they just never get underprivileged, but you get my point. So I want to just talk a little bit about some of the things that she talked about. So here is this badass actress that was being interviewed and pretty much burst into tears because she was just talking about how the match just ain't mathing when it comes to money in Hollywood. This is a well-known actress. She's like Oscar winner, badass. She's got the plaque. She's got the history. She works hard. And she was just saying how hard she works. And people say, like, you work all the time. You work so hard. And she's like, well, it's not like I want to work all the time, but the math just ain't mathing. Every time I break another ceiling, I'm paraphrasing this. Every time I break another ceiling, glass ceiling, and then it comes time to negotiate again, it seems like I'm starting again from the bottom, and the achievements that I've done just doesn't exist, never existed, right? And I look at the data that we have when it comes to disparities in medicine, and it exists in healthcare, where men are paid higher in general than their women counterparts, where women of color are paid significantly less. If you're black, if you're brown, you're paid significantly less. Averagely, doesn't mean like every single situation, but averagely, there's data that supports us that this is still happening in medicine in 2023. right? And so for her, it was just the fact that, like, why do I have to keep doing this regardless of how qualified and overqualified I am? And I think that really did strike a chord for me, and I'm sure it does for so many women, and especially minority women. Like, if you look at data, Black women in general are one of the most, were very, very high likelihood of getting like a higher level degree. And part of it is because you have to work even harder to show that you deserve to be at the table that you're on, right? It's not good enough for you to have your MD or D or MBBS. You still have patients that still question you and doubt whether you're qualified to be their doctor. You're in the hospital, you're working on the wards, you go into a room, you see the patient, and they're like, housekeeping is here to take the tray. Or maybe, I don't know if I've talked about this on the podcast, where maybe you work at a place and you had security called on you, like I did. Because how dare you be Black in healthcare? How dare you be Black in white coat? Right? And it doesn't really matter how many plaques, how many degrees you can get, your MD, PhD, whatever. At the bottom, at the end of the day, people just don't sometimes see past your color, right? And you can see how that affects not just how much we earn, but the amount of stress, the chronic stressors that people are going through, right? There was an article that I wrote a couple years ago with with a therapist that I've had the pleasure and honor, Dr. Jessica, of working with for many years when I was employed. And one of the things we're talking about was this whole idea of like stress on the body and this constant looking for balance that we're looking for, and how this can actually affect and increase the incidence of chronic illnesses, right? We talk about blood pressure, we talk about diabetes, we talk about heart disease. This is not all just about lifestyle. This is about the chronic stressors that need to like prove, that need to be seen, that need to like stop being underpaid, right? I will be honest with you guys, like when I started MoneyFit MD, no one actually outrightly said this, but the perception that I had, that I got, was that people were expecting that I was going to be like the low cost option. And I'm like, it is my rally, it is my job to make sure that I do not get underpaid. It is my act of, I don't even know this is like literally me like matching and like rallying to make sure that I don't get underpaid when it comes to negotiations. Whether that's when I'm speaking, whether that's how I'm pricing my program, whether that's in the quality of what I'm producing. Like that societal expectation just burns, right? And honestly, even as I'm talking about this, like I'm still feeling it, because you do all this work, you get all these placards like she has, you get awarded and clapped like, oh yes, you are the doctor of the year, doctor of the month, doctor of the century, top doc in crap. Yet at the end of the day, when it comes down to the table, the numbers just ain't speaking. I'm going to share some of the quotes that I read, because, maybe you're listening and you're like, well, maybe it's just her. No, it isn't. Have you heard about Viola Davis? She's like a badass, like a boss, but this is like badass women that I'm talking about. And one of the things she was quoted as saying is, what these actresses are getting paid, it's half what a man is getting paid. Well, we get probably a tenth of what a Caucasian woman gets. And I'm number one on the call sheet. And that's what she said. This is referring to African American women in an interview for Women in the World, right? She said, I got the Oscar, I got the Emmy, I got 2 Tonys. I've done Broadway, I've done off Broadway, I've done TV, I've done film, I've done all of it, she said, and yet I'm nowhere near them. Not as far as money, not as far as job opportunities, nowhere close to it. People say you're Black Meryl Streep. Well, she ain't. She's like on a roll of her own, by the way. You are. And we love you. We love you. There's no one like you. Okay then. If there's no one like me, if you think I'm that, you pay me what I'm worth. You give me what I'm worth. Like when I'm reading that, it just like hurts my soul. Another actress that has spoken about this is, Octavia Spencer, who again is a badass. And she's spoken many times about pay inequity in Hollywood. And she revealed that in 2019 that LeBron James had to intervene during her salary negotiations for a movie that she did, Madam CJ, in order for her to receive a fair check, noting the importance of men advocating for what is right regarding their female counterparts. She shared a similar lesson when she reviewed Jessica Chastain helped get her paid 5 times more, 5 freaking times more than originally quoted on a project they were staring in together after the pair had a conversation about pay inequities in Hollywood. 5 freaking times more. Like, just think about what that is. And especially for someone that's acting, right? That means time potentially away from their family, time rehearsing, time gone, time, doing all this stuff and not having time to live the life that she wants. And when I think about the equivalent in medicine, that's like time spent doing more calls, doing more whatever, right? When you're getting paid like 7 figures over the course of your career, less than your male counterparts, like, how does that, like, just let it make sense? Like, it just doesn't make sense. Yet that's the reality that people are still facing in 2023, right? And to be honest with you, like, I had second thoughts about doing this recording and releasing this episode around holiday. And I'm like, if we're going to do work in 2024, there's no better time than this to have this conversation, right? And part of this is, it's not just in Hollywood. Like, I've literally had women physicians tell me, like, one of a physician, brown woman physician, who found out that her male counterpart was getting paid more than she was. When she went to admin to talk to them about this, they actually denied it. And they were like, well, they denied it and said, let her give us proof. Unfortunately, this person that was getting paid more was like, I'm sorry, I cannot come out and speak on your behalf because I don't want to, like, suffer consequences for speaking up. Right? And here it is, like, this, we're being made to think that we're paranoid, right? It's like being gaslit, and you wonder why there is stress, you wonder why there is depression, and you wonder why minority women are leaving medicine at a freaking high pace. And in fact, those, I would dare to say that significant percentage of those that are not is because they don't know that they have a choice. They don't think they have a choice. And part of it is because their own math just ain't mathing either. I will be honest, this is part of why I do Money Fit MD. Like, my program is for women of all color. We have very huge diversity in there. But one of the things that I care about is really decreasing those freaking disparities that exist. And yes, it takes more than one person to change it. And that's the other thing that pisses me off. Is when we start having these conversations, people go ahead and they're like, well, I know this one person that, like, if you have to think so hard and sift through a huge crowd to get to one evidence, like, that just sucks. Like, I don't have to close my eyes to point at, a Caucasian man that's not underpaid. Like, why don't we just produce a world and a life that creates that same privilege for the others, right? Yes, I love knowing that there's examples of what exists. Like, I want to be an example. I want another woman physician to think and believe that it's possible for her. If Latifah can do it, I can. I will be honest with you, like, my friends know this. Like, when I'm going to speak at events, money spaces just ain't diverse. And there are times that I'm like, oh crap, like, I have to go do the stuff. And because I'm showing up not just for me, but I'm showing up for that woman that was me, that's looking through a crowd, trying to sift through, looking for someone like her so that she can believe that maybe it's possible for her too, right? So, I've done a lot of work on this and I'm so grateful, and I'm going to share some of the things that I believe you can learn to make us do better, be better. And it's going to take all of us to do this work, not just people that are being discriminated against or people that are being underpaid. It's going to take more than them. It's going to take you to stand up and advocate for them. And my goal and my job, really the job that I've chosen for myself, and I believe I'm called to do in the season of my life, is to empower, equip, and teach women physicians so that we can all advocate for each other regardless of the color of our skin. But if you listen to this and you are in a space of privilege, like, extend that to someone else. And there's going to be another episode on privilege, because I don't believe that privilege is necessarily a bad thing, and I'm going to talk about that more. But, like, whatever privilege you have, like, extend it to someone else. Like, I think about myself as a bridge. I invest in communities so that I can be a bridge for other women, so that they don't have to try so hard. It doesn't have to be so hard for them to build wealth. At the time of this recording, there was a woman physician that joined our program literally like 2 weeks ago. And within 2 weeks, she made her first passive investment stuff. Like she invested passively, and in the next year, she's going to start getting money passively in the mail, right? It's not because she's stupid. It's because, like, sometimes access just, this stuff just needs to be more accessible, right? And that's the work that I do. And I want you, like, honestly, if you're learning from me, whether you're in my community or you're learning in my podcast, like, my goal is to provide you with privilege, more privilege than you've had before, so that you can provide people like you with more privilege as well. That's how we're going to create this domino of privilege for more people, so that we can all have seats at the table, or at least be equipped to create our own freaking table. So there are certain things that I want to talk about that I don't have like special private access, so none of this is a result of like insider information, but I also just want to talk about certain things. And I believe I have like 3 or 4 things, whatever, I don't even know numbers today, whatever, that I believe can be impactful regarding what we can learn from this and how we can do better. So one of the things that she touched base upon is negotiation, right? And how she is not being, and she, not just she, but a lot of us, my hair is like looking whack right now. I'm not sure why. I guess because I'm like a little pissed. So I'm like, just like my hair, I'm literally, if you're not watching this video, go find my YouTube. I'm on YouTube, Money Fit MD. I'm literally like pulling my hair out, not literally but figuratively, and so my hair is looking like a mess right now because I'm just like, what's going on in this world? It frustrates me, infuriates me, and gets my butt on fire, literally. But like the salary part was a huge part of what she talked about. So the disparities in income, what people earn, whether it's paid or what they're charging. Okay. She talked about the mathing in terms of like the gross, where she used specifically 10 million. And she's like, if you have like $8 million in expense, that's like 2 million. And I know that many people are like, but that's a lot. But if you think about what 2 million is going to be able to afford her versus if she was able to get 5 times more what she was getting. And then the third part that she talked about is like taxes, right? She talked up on taxes. And we all know that as physicians, taxes is, the bane of our existence. If you're W-2, you're pretty much screwed when it comes to taxes. If you're W-2 only, but there are obviously ways that you can decrease your tax liability. And I'm not a tax specialist. I'm not anti-taxes. I'm okay with paying taxes. I just don't think that anyone should be paying 50% of what they're earning in taxes, where you're working full-time 5 days a week or whatever, and 2.5 days of that is for the government, while 2.5 days then goes towards what you are doing, including the cost of being a physician, which she pointed out the cost of doing what she does, right? And I talked about some of that in my book. If you're new to my world and you haven't bought our book yet, go on Amazon. It's called Done with Broke, The Woman Physician's Guide to More Money and Less Hustle. And I talked about some of the things that we've gone through, we go through in medicine. And I remember, reading this book and reading some of the reviews that I've gotten, and people saying things like, Latifat, I feel so, this is the first time that I feel like I'm being represented in a book about money, because finally someone gets us, right? That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. We need people that get us, right? And when people get us, number one is we don't feel like we're crazy when we're not. But number two is it increases our belief that if they can, then maybe we can too. So I'm going to touch up on those 3 things that I think you guys can learn from this stuff, so that we can do differently. Not better, just do differently. Because I know that, so many of us feel that like when that math in. And I felt that a lot, to be honest with you, before I started knowing money, doing money, and being in places where I can literally buy privilege so that I can make it more accessible to the people that are in my world, like you guys listen on the podcast. So let's talk about 3 things. So number 1 is negotiation. All right, y'all. Okay, negotiation. We got to negotiate. And yes, it's exhausting. It's tiring. Like, we wish we could just get paid what our counterparts are getting paid. But the bottom line is that it just ain't happening. And sometimes the expectation that life is fair, or I wish it was fair, but the bottom line is it's not. So the expectation that we wish it was fair can be stressful for us. So maybe not expecting that it should be fair, because it really is not fair. I would like for that to happen. And I hope in future that we'll have enough like power in numbers and power in advocacy to be able to do things like transparency in income or in payment more so than we have currently. But I think part of it is not expecting that it is fair, because it is not. So when you come to the table and you don't expect that it's fair, then you want to ask for what you want. And when I say ask for what you want, one of the things that it's important to keep in mind is there is ways you can find out averagely what people are earning. The MGMA data, you can Google MGMA data, is something that can provide information to you. And one thing that I find is when women physicians look at MGMA data, they're like looking at the average. And I'm here to remind you that you're not average. It's a bell curve. There are people in the middle, there are people in the lower area, but why can't you set the new bar? So you're not average. I don't want you going for average. If you listen to my podcast, you are above average. If you're in my world, you're above average. So ask for above average. You not ask for average. You're not average. The data shows you provide excellent quality that's better than average. You understand value because you've been listening to my podcast, and you know that we earn by giving increased value, not quantity but quality. So if you know that, I know that you're doing that, and you're still in terms of like the value that you create. So you're not average. And I know it sounds like I'm yelling right now. It's because I'm yelling. You're not average. Stop pretending like you are. You are an asset, period. Negotiate like one. And don't expect that what they offered you is fair. It ain't fair. You were offered way less than what's on the table. And ask. Ask others what they're getting paid. Ask them. I literally, when I'm speaking, when a lot of times I would have women physicians reach out to me and say, I'm part of this organization and would love for you to come speak, blah, blah, blah. Here's a budget. A lot of times people are like, well, we don't have a lot of budget. I might go back to talk to the people that told you as a woman physician to underpay another woman physician, and make sure you're not participating in the systemic, chronic, continued, progressive underpayment of women. Right? Because a lot of times that's what happens. People are going to ask you as a woman physician, especially as a minority woman physician, to go talk to another minority woman physician and play on their mercy, play on your combined communal common experience, and ask them to come be underpaid. You see what I mean? So ask them. If someone is like, go ask Latifah to come speak, ask them. I'm not going to ask Latifah to pay, what would we offer her Caucasian colleague to come speak? That's what we want to ask her, right? So make sure, and I'm intentional about that as well. Like when I'm paying people in my life, I want to make sure that they're not underpaid too, right? So that's important. So negotiate, negotiate, negotiate. And remember that negotiation is not only about the cash, even though cash is part of that, but I've had people where I've told them to negotiate, and instead of getting 5 days work per week, they're able to negotiate to 4 days with the same pay, and now they can have 1 day off, right? Maybe you can negotiate for higher CME. Maybe you can negotiate for higher retirement contribution. Like many employers will tell you, oh, it's fixed, it's standard. It ain't. If you cannot negotiate for more money, negotiate for more time off. Half a day, a week of being able to, take admin time. 1 day a week of being able to work remotely so that you can maybe wear shorts as well as you do your telemedicine. Just remember not to stand up. You get what I mean? Like negotiate, negotiate, negotiate. The assumption is that you're being offered less. The assumption is that they want you to ask. And if you don't ask, you ain't gonna get. If you ask, there's a good chance you will get. And if you don't get first, you may get later. One of my women inside of the Money Square, I remember, she got a job as an employed physician. She negotiated. She was like, they offered me something that was good. And I was like, shoot, if I come talk to Latifah and I'm like, I did not negotiate, Latifah is going to give me the stinky side eye. And yeah, I got a stinky side eye. And I'm looking at, I want you to imagine me staring at you with those stinky side eyes next time you're not negotiating what you should be negotiating. Okay? So she negotiated. And because she negotiated, she, in her words, was getting paid more than she'd ever imagined getting paid as a primary care doctor, because she dared to ask and she dared to sit down in the discomfort of they may say no. That discomfort made her significantly more, multiple 5 figures, definitely 5 figures. I don't think it was up to 6 figures, multiple 5 figures, more than she would have gotten paid if she could not tolerate being uncomfortable in terms of her thought that they may actually say no. So negotiate, negotiate, negotiate. That's important. Negotiate, and negotiate on behalf of others. Don't let them have to fight for themselves. Negotiate on behalf of them as well, okay? Number 2 is expectations. And this one is a tough one because a lot of times we've been conditioned, groomed, and taught and socialized to want to people please, right? A lot of times we get our values from what people think about us. Like the thank you is what matters. Be a giver, don't be a receiver. Like the crap we've been taught, right? We get so much value because, again, this is how we've been taught, from being givers and thinking about everybody else and not about us at all, that what that does, it adds to the cost of expectations that is had on us. And this is especially true if you're the first in your family to do something, you're the first to be a physician, you're the first to even think about money, you're the first to go to college, you're the first to blah, 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 blah. And I've shared before on the podcast, like I remember when I finished fellowship, the question that I was asked was, so what purse are you going to buy? What house are you going to buy? Nobody asked me what assets I was going to buy, right? And you can see how those expectations, if we choose to not check that expectation and choose to not live differently so that we can have differently and have choices differently, we're literally going to fall in line of this whole systemic crap that's led to generational discrimination and bias and decreased wealth for people like you and I. So the expectations part is something that we have to change, and it's stuff that I've worked on myself, right? And how you may need to disappoint some people in the short term so that you don't disappoint yourself in the long term. Disappoint people and say no in the short term so that you can create hell yeses in the long term, right? I will be honest with you, there are things that I had to say no to, giving that I had to say no to, because when I first started my work as an attendant, I literally would like earn and give everything because I just loved giving. I still do. Right. But I've had to learn how to do that differently, where I'm investing first and then giving as well. Giving, in my opinion, is an asset class. So I'm not saying don't give. I do believe that when you give, you will receive. It's a law of the world, regardless of what religion or faith you practice. Right. But keeping in mind that it's so important for us to understand that there are expectations that we have. And because we've been groomed in those expectations, it's become our comfort zone. We're comfortable in those expectations. So when you're saying no, when you're saying not now, when you're saying I don't have to give this cost right now, it feels uncomfortable. But again, just remember that discomfort literally is the key to the change that you want to see in your life. So when you're choosing comfort only, you're literally, nothing is going to change. And in order for things to change, you have to break patterns. You have to change the cycle, right? And as we know, as physics, forgive me for quoting physics. I did not like physics yet. I keep quoting physics. But a body in motion will stay in a state of motion, right? Unless another force acts on it, and the body at rest will stay at rest. So that's something acting on it. It's going to cause ouch. It's going to cost a change, right? When you're moving, like if you see people driving a stick shift, the change in gear, you will feel it. It feels different. Like it's not as, you will know it, but that means something different. And if you want different, but you're not willing to experience that transition to different, that means you're saying one thing, but you don't actually want it. And there's nothing wrong with that, as long as you understand that you're only going to create what you're willing to accept. And that's just the truth. And I think that should be a quote somewhere. You only create what you're willing to accept. Like that's it, right? If we're going to accept being underpaid, that's what's going to be happening. If we're going to accept letting everybody's expectation causes us to have the chronic stress and the lack of choices, honestly, guys, if I did not disappoint people, I would not take the sabbatical that I'm on. If I did not disappoint people, I would not be able to give at the level that I am able to. If I did not disappoint people, I'd not be able to buy assets the way that I'm able to right now, right? So I want us to learn to disappoint people. And yes, it sucks. It doesn't feel good. But again, that doesn't feel good is your transition to actually creating what you want. And I know that you're not selfish. So that thing that you actually want to create is not only for your own good, but for the long-term good as well. If you would just be uncomfortable transiently, I promise you it doesn't last forever, but it's just that season of change is what is going to feel the most uncomfortable. Okay, so that's number 2. And then number 3 is money management. When I talk about money management, like guys, what you earn is one thing, what you invest, that's literally like I've had people that earn like $600,000 a year and they have nothing to show for it, right? Zero judgment, but that's just a state that they're in. That's a starting point. It's not too late, but that's where they are right now. I literally had someone tell me a couple of days ago, someone making about $40,000 a month, and by the time they calculate their financial net worth, their net worth was actually like, I think, $80,000. And they've been doing the stuff they're doing that's generating about 40K a month for a while, right? So what you earn, I want you to earn well. But what you earn is one thing. And the way that I know that is taught people about money, their income did not change at first, but then their net worth changes. Their income doesn't change at first, but their mindset changes, and that helps them earn more money, right? So I don't want you to think I'm a this specialty, this is what I earn, it means that I cannot have. No, I promise you there's someone in your zip code that's earning what you earn, maybe even less, and they're creating differently. So it's not just about what you earn, it's what you're doing with it. And that's where money management happens, right? And part of money management, it's not just about the spending, but it's also about the investing and also understanding the tax code. The tax code is written for real estate investors and business owners, right? So you and I can keep trying to swim against the current, or we can just learn to what the rules are, learn what exists so that we can also leverage it for our sake and for the sake of our community. So that when you learn, you can teach one else, you can teach one else, you can teach one else, right? And what I mean by that is making sure that you're optimizing. If you're investing in retirement accounts, optimizing that is important. If you have businesses, making sure that you really are paying attention to the deductibles and the business expenses. So that, like, for example, I will be honest with you guys, like when we do businesses, we get points with our businesses, and the points also supplement some of our own personal life, traveling and whatever it is that we want to do with it, right? That's legal because they're business expenses. We're paying the money off, we're paying the credit card off. I'm not accumulating debt, right? I've done podcast episodes on like how to use credit cards like an adult. I use it like an adult, like a badass that you are. And if you don't know how to, you can learn. I can teach you. Like literally at the time of this recording, I'm putting together a money guide, which a 2024 money guide that is going to help you like a kicker or a money starter kit. So just stay tuned. When it's available, you will know so that you can access it. You can start to learn how to do your money as well. For 2024, we're going to have like a mini course that you can access and buy at any point of like how to learn how to use wealth, debt to build wealth, how to go from like being debt afraid to having freedom of debt, right? We have so much that we're preparing for you guys for 2024, because my goal for 2024 is we've done a lot of great work in 2023, but in 2024, we're going to up that up a whole notch because of things like this that piss me off. Because I want you to be well. Like, I know that your life matters. And every time I read about one more physician that thinks she doesn't have a choice in how she lives her life, I'm like, just like, literally, like, my sphincter tone is like tight. I'm just being honest with you. I'm just listen, you tuned into the podcast of a GI doctor. What were you expecting to hear? And if you listen with your kids, like, Mommy, what's a sphincter? It's anatomy. They can learn. Oh my goodness, guys. But anyway, so money management is super duper important. It's what I teach. You guys are learning some of that on this podcast. But inside of the money school, like when women come in there, they have learnings that's about 8 hours or so total, where they can literally learn everything that they wish they had been taught about money. And then they work with us for 12 months. And what we're doing there is actually helping them take action. And to be honest with you, like, there's so much crap when it comes to money education that in order for you to have money, you're going to have to unlearn and learn differently. And that's what we do inside of the money school, so that within 12 months, your finances are different. Yes, we're not going to kick you. I had a doctor who was towards the end of her 12 months, and she's like, Rajiva, are you going to kick me out? I'm like, I'm not kicking you out. I love you. We have something for you for the next level, right? So don't worry, we don't kick you out after 12 months. We can lower your blood pressure right now. I love you too. Don't listen. You're not the only person that loves me. I love you too. And I want you around because I love the changes that you make when you're in our community. I love the impact that you're creating in the world. I love seeing how you're impacting and changing the lives of people out there. I love seeing the awards that you're getting, but I want it to be backed up by dollar as well, because we're done taking placards. We're done taking like trophies. We want it to be backed up by increased wealth. We want it to be backed up by increased pay, by the value that we create being reflected back in the dollars that we've been shown. And we refuse to be the cheap option. We refuse to be the underpaid option. We refuse to be the Walmart version. Yeah, I'm telling it like it is. I refuse. But listen, sometimes I wish the world was more fair, but the bottom line is that it's not. But after everything that I've talked about, I want you to just ask yourself, which one of those 3 points are you taking home that you're going to impute? But whichever one you decide to impute, whether it's to negotiate more, whether it's to learn to change the expectations and sit in the discomfort of change, whether it's to learn more money management, but not just learn money management, but actually take actions, because knowledge only doesn't create change or wealth. It's knowledge plus action that does. And one of the things that my women talk about inside of the money school is, Latifah says, you learn and then you do. You do as you're learning, you do as you're learning, you do as you're learning, right? That way you're not waiting for this time in future where you think you know enough, but instead you already are creating enough. So I hope this episode has been helpful. I know that y'all are like super duper connected and know like big people. So if you happen to know Taraji, just know that she's not alone, that we feel her, we love her, we see her, that I'm rooting for her, that, you know, she inspired this episode. And I hate when sometimes like your disadvantage becomes a inspiration for others. Sometimes you're like, what the heck? But just know that it's not in a negative way. It's in the fact that we're saying that we share, we see you, we feel it, and we're going to do differently. We're going to ask for differently. And guys, if you listen to this episode, I don't care if you're white, you're brown, you're a dude, whatever you are, please advocate for us. Advocate for the others. I advocate for you too. And I will keep doing my best. I'm not perfect at it, and I don't expect it to be perfect. But when we know better, let's do better. So I would love it if you can share this episode with someone else. It doesn't have to be a physician to share it, because I truly believe that this affects so many more fields than just medicine or entertainment only. Share it, and if you share it on social media, tag me. I would love to repost and give you a shout out as well. And if you haven't left us a review yet, please do. Please do. The way you do it, it literally takes 30 seconds. You scroll down or whatever platform you're listening to right now, click on 5 stars. Yes, I love 5 stars. I love those blinks. 5 star, that's what I love. That's what I love. That's what I love. So click on 5 star. Tell me what you love about this episode. Um, but anyways, thank you so much. I love you. I appreciate you. I'm wishing you a happy holiday. Merry Christmas. If you listen to this in 2024, make sure you click on whatever link is here so that you can access our free money guide. We have so much great stuff for you in 2024. I'm so excited. I don't think I've ever been as excited as I am in 2024, because I know that we have a lot of great work that we're going to be doing. I love you. I'm rooting for you, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
If you have loved this episode, I would love it if you can head over to iTunes and leave us a review. It helps us get this content to more women physicians. This is a money revolution, and I'm so glad that you're a part of it. Thank you for listening.